I was playing for Melbourne Uni Lacrosse Club when it turned 100 in 1983. And while being here today for the 140th makes me feel distinctly old, it also makes me realise how many people played for this club while I was part of it, on and off, from 1981 to 1998, and the lasting friendships that came from being involved in it. Lacrosse clubs can be very fragile and ephemeral organisms. They don't usually last anything like 140 years. In the proud tradition of my father, Webb, who was also a key uni player in the 50s and onwards, I have a story that may not necessarily be what I was asked to speak about, but as Dad would say, I'm telling it anyway. I have a clear memory of being a half-asleep teenager in a car full of Eltham players on our way back from Newcombe in 1979, or maybe it was 80. It's always been a dust. Someone pronounced a death sentence on a lacrosse club in its first season. The drive to Newcombe from Eltham in those days took more than 3 hours. There was no ring road. And with all the VFL games played on Saturday afternoons, the footy traffic would bring Melbourne to a standstill. Newcombe's a suburb out west past Geelong, and when Eltham was fixtured to play the Newcombe Lacrosse Club at their home ground, we met early in the morning at Eltham's Research Park to carpool. We battled the footy goers through Melbourne and Geelong and struggled to find the Newcombe ground. And when we did, it was a paddock in the back box with nowhere to change except the car. Not that that was unusual in the 70s. A bloke keeping out of the cold wind got out of his car and greeted us, and I remember that he thanked us with huge sincerity for coming all that way. Newcombe had a bare 10 players and we flogged them. We didn't hang around afterwards because we had a long drive home and not much was on offer in the way of professionals. I was nodding off in the back seat while the older blokes drank cans and of course smoked. There wasn't much talk. Then someone said, you know, we're never going back there. Someone else said, no. That was the end of the Newcombe Lacrosse Club. My dad always reckoned that Newcombe only made finals that year with all the walkovers they were given. I still don't really know if that was true. I never forgot that day, and when I played for the Bendigo Club years later, I always made a point of thanking visiting teams for coming up, just like the Newcombe guy did. So, yes, a lacrosse club with an unbroken 140-year history is truly remarkable. For 42 of the 140 years, or 30% of the uni club's life, often the face of the club and the personification of its persistence has been Sean Williams and Chopper Henry. Both of them started around the same time as I did. I turned up under the old uni rule from Eltham in 1981. The uni rule was strictly enforced by the association back then, so if you wanted to play lacrosse and were enrolled at Melbourne Uni, you played for uni.
If only.
This meant that the Uni Division 1 team had some real talent back in 1981, but Sean, Chopper and I were Division 3 stalwarts for many years in an era when that team didn't win many games. In fact, I remember a 60-0 drubbing at the hands of Williamstown, and they were 25-minute quarters. No, 60. I knew you'd pick it. At half time, the little guys insulted us by going back to their club rooms for beers, and they were slowly coming back out. The ref took pity on us and started the game without them. Someone from the middle took the ball at the centre, threw it at an empty goal and missed. By the time it was retrieved, we were back on the field. On this occasion tonight, I tried in vain to get the video footage of Chopper earning his nickname in his first ever game. Someone at Eltham captured it on film. It shows Chopper misunderstanding the main use of the cross. A distant Ian Heaney, as he was then known, chases down a hapless Eltham player, and the film shakily stops shortly after the stick is swung savagely onto the player's head. The video was played at the Eltham presentation night in 1981. I was there as a junior coach, and I can report that everyone roared with laughter. But according to Pauline at Eltham, the video was sadly lost forever. I know. Sean, Chopper and I improved our skills, and by 1984 we were occasionally being called on to play in Division 1. And by the end of the season I felt like I was really getting somewhere with the sport. But at this point, day 2, the day 1 evening session at Fieldlands Hotel was enhanced by lots of Macra locals who were alerted to the event after I foolishly left the information on the Murray Golden office fax machine after I faxed it to Chopper, where it was found by the biggest gossip in Macra. Half the staff from the factory turned up, and it ended up being a pretty wild old night. And Chopper, in particular, was able to very successfully bridge the city-country divide. Value, value, value. By the way, I should note that I've never heard of anyone bettering Ted Williams' stellar record of 11 stubbies on the Macra frontline holes. At the beginning of 1993, I left Macra for good to go back to Melbourne, just in time for the beginning of the lacrosse season to play with uni again. The club had moved in next to CSL in Parkville and had changed to a mixed club. In my undergraduate days, there'd been a women's team at uni, but they played, trained and drank separately from the men, and it was always a surprise when they turned up to be part of IB. In 1992, the women's team had been reformed, was thriving under the coaching of Tim Richmond with Sean as assistant, so that in 1994 they were able to win a premiership. The key change at the club was that the men's and women's teams now trained on the same nights at the hockey pitch, and we all finished up at the Clyde afterwards. It made for a much better club, and it's remained a mixed club ever since. That period from 93 to 99 was a terrific time, with a great group of people, and I remember those years as some of the most enjoyable I had at the club. I took on the role of social secretary for a year or two in the 90s, and the cocktail nights and Mexican themed evenings were memorable, and a major part of the success of that period was down to the madness and enthusiasm of one man. Hi, I'm Steve Chow, but everyone calls me Chow. And thus the legend was born. Chow featured on all the flyers for every event I ever organised. He was a fairly ordinary lacrosse player. He had poor vision and could be completely incomprehensible, but he was a lot of fun to watch. He would often hit himself in the testicles with his own stick, like peering from the back line, and refs would look for a foul, would reassure them that it was self-inflicted. His manual English and his use of genders was pure Chow. People would ask what his first language was, and he would have to explain that it was indeed English, and that he knew no other. He was from Drillery in New South Wales. The Cherry stories could fill a book. The women of the club could tell you of a disturbingly persistent suitor. The rest of us could tell stories of trying to shake Cherry off at the end of a big night when you just did not feel like having him camp on your couch. I can also tell you of a St Patrick's Day evening where Cherry managed to not only wangle a spare bed at my place, but also a willing bedmate. The memory of the resulting raucous congress in the room next door haunts me still. There was Cherry. There was Cherry, almost knocking himself out cold on an offset street sign in Tin Alley, but jumping up to assure us, "I'm okay." Cherry knocking out a teammate's front teeth with a wild check and a casual throw around at training. His body work was immense, but it was his ability to recite the entire pre-battle speech from Shakespeare's Henry V that brought him most fame. He would let rip whenever requested, with onlookers both moved and baffled. We were on the Overlander heading to Adelaide for IV and 97, and other passengers were becoming annoyed with our late night noise. I said, "Hey, Chowie, why don't you do something with it?" He got to his feet and began with all the fervour that Slide Rod could bring. "We fuel, we happy fuel, we band of brothers." People in the carriage went quiet. People making their way to the toilet stopped to listen. Tears started from eyes as he finished, and the entire carriage erupted in applause. Cherry was a phenomenon. He left the club in about 98, headhunted by a geomatics company. We still could never explain what geomatics was. He went to the USA. He also walked into a ready-made family with a wife and 4 kids. He was up for anything, Miss Cherry. We'll never see his like again. But in the end, as well as the ups, we had some downs. There was a coaching crisis that saw me thrust with very little confidence into that position for a couple of years. And during that time, we had a crisis over a breathtakingly unfair fixture that forced us into much correspondence with the association and to finally insist on a mid-season redraw. Sometimes we struggled for player numbers because during my wilderness years, the uni rule became watered down, less strictly enforced by the association, and it often fell to Sean to investigate and report players who were enrolled at the uni but not playing for us. It became very tiresome until finally the association said there would be no more uni rule, that the uni needed to field juniors or face losing premiership points. Many here will know the feeling. I started to think I'd had enough. And adding the issue from the training on the hockey pitch sidelined me from playing, and out of the blue, Duncan McKenzie rang me at work one day and offered to take over as coach. I also had a feeling that if we were heading down the juniors path, that someone else could do it. The club was moving on, but I wasn't going with it. I headed back to the bush to Lansfield in 2001 with Lacrosse finally behind me, or so I thought. Then in 2010 I was roped in to play a few games that became 100 for the new Bendigo club. The first game I played was against Uni at Uni, and the first people I saw were Sean and Chopper. My God, are you blokes still here? It felt like I'd come home, and tonight it still does. Thank you.
Really great reminiscence. Thanks, John. Well, we're pleased to know that we've left the MULC behind, and we're now going to talk about MULAX. The modern era, the 2000s, ask Dr. Cindy Lee for the
and pay my respects to the elders past and present. I extend my respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders here today. So for those who don't know me, my name is Cindy. I joined back in 2013, which was my first year of uni, and also my first year living in Melbourne, having moved from Bendigo. So shout out to John Webb, Abby for the Bendigo region. Back then I'd never touched the lacrosse stick prior to that first come and try session back in February 2013. And everything I knew about lacrosse was derived from pop culture such as Wild Child, Mean Girls and American Pie. I must admit, I did really love the sport of lacrosse during my first season. It took me about 3 training sessions before I caught my first ball. And my first ever goal was quite questionable as well, down at the Williamstown field, where I lobbed the ball directly onto the goalie's helmet, where it had reflected off and straight past the top of the goal net. But nonetheless, my love for the sport steadily grew over the years. But honestly, the reason why I've come back year and year and still do after 10 years of playing is because of the club and the people that are part of it. Tonight I've been asked to talk about the perhaps of the club in the teens and the early 20s in a few short minutes, which is difficult given the growth and the volume of change that MULAX has been through. So to keep me on track, and as tonight's millennial representative, I've kindly asked and actually sought the assistance of ChatGPT to write Here we go. Our little ladies, our women's team, who've grown in success, it sure does seem. In 2021 and 2, almost making it to the grand final, the overall growth in the women's competition over the last decade is undeniable. A is for Adelaide, where we head every second year, for the ongoing annual Adelaide v Uni InterVarsity competition with many consumed years. The Friday road trip scavenger hunt is always a blast, but the recovery game on a Sunday post a big night out on Hindley Street is not particularly fast. C is for coaches like Duncan McKenzie, Nathan Hunter-Gerber, Craig Coffey, Megan Rosa, who've helped us grow, and player coaches including Steve Turzak, Badger Burgess, Tyler Reynolds, Millie Caddy, Dizzy DeRee, Monica Ashton and Sue Prentice, who give it a go. Without their guidance and support, we would have been screwed. So to those who have been with us throughout the years, we show them gratitude. R is for Rainbow, we're an ally to the LGBTQI community. Alongside that, welcoming to the sport not just uni students, to give them the opportunity. Lacrosse Together is a new Monday lunchtime program held down at the uni ground, a social and inclusive way to give newbies a chance to play a few mini rounds. O is for the overseas exchange students and those on short-term visas who come and go from USA, UK, Japan, Italy and co. After a short COVID break, they're back again, adding to the diversity of the team, with many becoming long-lasting friends. S is for the single toilet down at the Western Oval Clubhouse, aka the toilet blocks. But as of 2022, it's transformed into a fantastic hub that really rocks. With a view of the grounds, 4 spacious change rooms and an open kitchen with cashless payments, it's become a great place for celebrations and is definitely an upgrade for what felt like at the basement. Now this second S is a bit of a stretch, but the second S stands for Uni Sports Nationals, for which lacrosse had its inaugural year in 2019. A modified 5v5 format with a soft rubber ball on a basketball-sized court is how it's seen. Lacrosse 5s is through the MULAX comp, is played on Monday evenings during the semester against RMIT, La Trobe, Swinburne, Monash, Vic Uni. Each year gets bigger and better. E is for our social events and entertainment. The Doot, the Clyde and the Charles Weston are just some of our places that we frequent. Lawn bowls, trivia and karaoke parties are just some of the things that we get off the field. Korean barbecue, dumplings and Alan's old lamb spit on the Flame Ken Sharehouse coffee table are just some of our favourite meals. So as we celebrate this milestone year, let's look back on all the progress and cheer. Here's to another 140 years of success. The Melbourne University Lacrosse Club. We're old and I'm impressed.
shows that we're kind of adding a literary note to raising the standard enormously of the 2000s, obviously, not the 1900s. I think we've got a short break now for the dinner break. Can I just leave you with one conundrum to think about over dinner? Is that whenever, I think John talked about the blues, about having blues on the ground and so on. What always fascinated me about playing lacrosse and having a fight with another team, which is usually Altona in our view, is that the opposition, when they wanted to fight, they dropped their rackets and then wanted to sort of use their fists on you. Whereas I thought the idea was you keep the racket in your hand and knock the shit out of them. But it seemed to be a tradition that if you wanted a real fight, you had to drop the racket. Can you tell me how that worked? Okay, we'll have a dinner break.